Welcome to the P.A.S. Report podcast. If you're tired of censorship, outraged by government abuses, and thirsty for real insights, then you're in the right place. Get ready, because here, the fight for freedom never ends. Here's your host, Professor Nick Giordano.
What's up, everyone, and welcome to the P.A.S. Report podcast. This is your host, Nick Giordano. I'm glad you could join me today. Make sure you follow and subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. Also, visit the P.A.S. Report website, pasreport.com, and share this episode with your family and friends. I have a great guest for today. I have Stefano Forte. He is the new president of the New York Young Republican Club. He has big shoes to fill, but I have no doubt he could fill them, that's for sure. And the New York Young Republican Club, I do believe, is the oldest Young Republican Club in the country and the largest. So Stefano, correct me if I'm wrong, but Stefano, welcome to the program. How are you?
I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me, Nick. This is just great. And yeah, we're the oldest and largest Republican club in the entirety of the country. We just hit 1,776 members, a number we're very proud of, and we're about to hit 1,800 members. So it's just growing rapidly.
That's great. You know, by the end of the year, maybe you get up to the 2,000 mark. And you know, it's interesting because the New York Young Republican Club did go dormant for a little bit. And then, you know, Gavin Wax became president and was able to revive it. And I don't think people realize that, you know, they look at the New York Young Republican Club and they may think, well, that's just exclusive to New York City. Why would I pay attention to it? But the reality is that your organization has had a major impact, including the last election, where you helped bring Pennsylvania to President Trump, correct?
Yeah, that's true. Our organization has really become international, from our connections in Hungary, international connections throughout the globe. And last election, we played a huge role in delivering President Trump Bucks County in Pennsylvania. We sent 80 people down to Bucks County, and we knocked on upwards of, I'm forgetting the number now, but I think it was around 30,000 doors we knocked on. And we were number 2 in the country in calls for President Trump on his app, his calling app. So we're doing it all, and the best thing about this is a volunteer organization. Nobody is being paid, but people are treating this like a full-time job because they really want to be a part of a movement. The New York Young Republican Club, we are leading that youth movement. We are leading that Trump movement. We really believe that we are the vanguard of that Trump movement.
You know, I have to ask you, how do you get young people engaged? I mean, let's be honest, it's hard to even get grown adults engaged in the political process. But when it comes to younger people, how have you guys brought in a fresh crop of young people? Because I'm looking at the demographics, and I do see, interestingly enough, a younger generation that is actually more conservative. So how do you do it? What's the appeal?
Well, you know, the appeal of the Young Republican Club really is the social aspect of it. I believe my tenure as president is going to be defined by the 3 C's: culture, campaign, and community. Culture is a huge aspect of that, where we are creating a culture where people feel comfortable to say, I am a Republican, to be proud that they're a Republican. And in New York State, especially in New York City, a lot of people were really afraid to say that they were a Republican. They were really afraid to say, oh, no, I can't go near that R word. But now people feel open. People feel like they can say it. We've made being a Republican cool, because it's a youth movement. Like you said, younger Gen Z conservatives are moving towards the conservative end of the political spectrum. So I really think that the Young Republican Club has made it cool to be a Republican. And look, we really don't have to sell it, if I'm being completely honest with you. People are really coming in droves because they see.
Well, let's be honest, the Democrats helped you out a lot.
Yeah. The more they talk, I tell my board this all the time. I'm like, we should just be quiet. The more that they talk, the better it is for us. The more people flock. And you have no idea how many of them say, I was a Democrat when I got out of college, and then I just saw how crazy they could be, and now I want to be a Republican. So we've made being a Republican cool, and I think President Trump has done that as well, making being a Republican cool. So it's really not a tough sell. People are really coming in droves.
Yeah, and let's be honest here. Obviously, a lot of the policies that have been put in place, particularly by Democrats, but even Republicans over the last 30 years, haven't really spoken to the younger generations. You know, when we look at purchasing a home, when we look at the student loan debt, you have a lot of issues that young people care about, and yet they don't see anyone fighting for them. So, what does your organization do to reach out to gain new members?
Yeah, well, it's interesting that you say that, and I wanna jump on one thing that you said was that it's not just Democrats. Republicans as well have been just as guilty in the managed decline of our country. You know, there are plenty of rhinos out there that were willing to sell their souls to go to the cocktail parties with the liberals so they could say, "Oh, that's one of the good ones. They're one of the good Republicans," right? This movement is really a MAGA America First movement. And as long as it stays a MAGA America First movement, then we are going to see major gains throughout the country, and we'll be seeing election victories for years to come. And in terms of the rest of your question, I think that in the wake of COVID, a lot of young people were rapidly moved to the right because they were denied practically everything. They were denied a high school experience. They were denied a graduation. They weren't able to enjoy the things that other students were. And they saw this sleepy guy, Joe Biden, on TV telling them they can't go to prom, they got to wear a mask, and they have to be indoors under house arrest. And it just doesn't work. And they know that. And that's why I think they're coming to our party in droves. And what we do to advocate for our young Republicans is we give them an outlet. I really believe that sometimes that this club is a union for young people who are entering politics because we have each other's backs. We have a job board on our website where we help fill positions with young Republicans. We always ask our endorsed candidates, please, if you have open positions, let us know. We'd love to fill them with young Republicans who want to work. This movement is a fully holistic movement. It's not just parties. It's not just campaigns. It's work. And it really is. It's work for a movement that a lot of people believe in.
You know, I'm so glad that you brought up the fact that you had a bunch of young people have 2 years of their lives stolen from
Yes.
them for the coronavirus, and that is a big catalyst for what we're witnessing. You know, I remember a colleague of mine who received an email from a student, and it still sits with me today, where she said, you know, I can't begin to express all the bitterness and resentment I have for a government that stole 2 years of my life. And that still sticks with me today because it was a powerful email. Do you think that Republicans haven't exploited that enough over the course of the last few years to reach even more young people?
The problem is that I think a lot of Republicans were just as guilty of it. There were some good ones that were really fighting against Fauci and some of this just straight up incompetence, and it was weaponized incompetence. In order to keep us indoors, they wanted to steal an election, and the Democrats knew that if they hung on to this issue, right? You know, if you don't believe that the coronavirus is airborne cancer, you're gonna kill grandma, right? I think that there have been certain Republicans who have been able to use this. I think President Trump has been able to use this. And, you know, they promised a return to normalcy. When Biden came into office and he shuffled in and wiped the sleep off his eyes, right? He said, I'm going to bring us back to normal. And it was nothing but normal.
No,
right?
definitely not.
It was nothing but nobody felt like we were under any sort of normalcy. The United States fell on the world stage domestically. President Biden, again, he was sleepy and everybody saw it. So I think that Republicans really need to jump on this issue because this is a lasting issue. COVID has not left us, right? And I'm not talking about the virus. I'm talking about what had happened. In my day job, I'm the executive director of the 1776 Project. So we do school board races throughout the country. I see firsthand the learning loss. There are children that cannot read, and the Democrats are still talking about critical race theory. So it is insane how they have managed to steal the future away from an entire generation that's now playing catch up.
Yeah, it's terrible, the whole thing. And I see it obviously every semester, you know, students coming in that aren't necessarily college ready. And we had problems even before the pandemic. The pandemic made it 10 times worse. The policies of the pandemic made it 10 times worse. But one of the worst human beings when it came to the pandemic was former Emperor Cuomo, where he would go out and he would tell children, You don't want to be responsible for killing grandma and grandpa. Meanwhile, he was responsible for killing most of the old people by allowing COVID patients into nursing homes. But, first of all, what does it say when our politicians try and instill fear in children that they're going to be responsible for the death of their grandma and grandpa? And the second part of this question is, what does it say about the Democrat Party that's actually placing hope that Cuomo becomes the next mayor of New York, that's their savior? What does that say? How broken is the Democrat Party?
The Democratic Party has no direction whatsoever. It is a cadaver, and somebody is going to have to wake it up. And it's a real state of the party where nobody knows who the leader is. And the fact that Andrew Cuomo, disgraced Andrew Cuomo, is now running for mayor, and he is the front runner, and everyone is rallying around him. It really shows you the state of the Democratic Party and how low the bar is for their candidates. If a Republican tried pulling the comeback that Andrew Cuomo pulled, the media would be dragging him from here to China. But the fact that Cuomo comes out of the woodwork now and says, listen, you'll forget anything ever happened. I'm the guy that got things done. And people are just like, oh, okay, yeah, we'll vote for Cuomo. We remember him. It's a real sad state of the Democratic Party. But with that being said, and I've told this to a lot of people, do not discount Zohran. Do not discount Zohran. He is running a real grassroots campaign.
And just to explain to the audience, because, we have a national audience, explain how radical Zohran is.
Oh, Zohran is so radical. Defund the police. I mean, he was yelling at Tom Homan, talking about how sanctuary cities make cities safer. The guy is totally out of his mind, right? He comes from a part of New York City that is called the People's Republic of Astoria. I grew up in Astoria. It used to be predominantly Greek. Obviously, demographics have changed. And as those demographics have changed, things have been swung so far to the left that you have a whole group of politicians being led by AOC, Zohran, and a couple of the other, I'm forgetting the names, but a couple of the other local electeds, Tiffany Caban, that are pro defund the police, that are pro, it isn't even anti-Israel, it's pro Hamas. They are totally and completely out of their mind. But Zohran's running a great race. He's got the most individual donors out of anybody in the Democratic primary, and I do not think we can discount him. Do I think he's going to win? Probably not. But do I think that he has got the momentum and the wind in his sails? 100%. Absolutely. Cuomo, I think, is afraid of him. And Cuomo knows that this kind of old school, manufactured, astroturfed campaign might not be good for the long run.
Yeah, well, I mean, the times have changed. The Democrat Party has certainly grown more radical, as we've witnessed over the last couple of years. And this creates an opening for Republicans in places like the 5 boroughs of New York to start making gains. Now, we started to see the New York Young Republican Club actually lay out the groundwork, right? I mean, I've been talking about for years that the Republican Party needs to go in communities they long ignored. And it wasn't the official state GOP that did it. It was your organization. Then you saw Lee Zeldin running for governor, making further gains. Obviously, Trump made actually tremendous gains here in the 5 boroughs. What do you see? Do you see this trend continuing? And do you wish that the Republican apparatus would provide more support in this area rather than just writing it off, saying, it's Democrat, it's always going to be Democrat?
The Republican apparatus in New York State is A-OK losing because it's good for fundraising. You're always going to be able to fundraise off of how bad the Democrats are, but when it comes time to lead, they're not really there. And we have made gains, significant gains in the city, not because of them, but for the most part in spite of them. And look, they don't like us very much. I don't think about them very often. And we're going to keep doing what we need to do in order to win here in New York City. We've made tremendous gains in New York City. One of our most recent elections, that this was on Staten Island, but still it shows you the power of the club. We sent 50 people to help Frank Morano get elected on the South Shore of Staten Island to knock on doors. We did the same thing in Bucks County. All 100% of our endorsed candidates made the ballot this year. 100%. From Long Island to Staten Island, they have all made the ballot. So we're going into communities, especially the Chinese community. We've made huge inroads there, the Hispanic community, the Black community. When we helped President Trump put on a rally in the Bronx, it wasn't the state GOP, it wasn't those guys. They may have waltzed in and gone into their VIP section, but who was working the door? Who was signing up voters? Who was making sure that President Trump's message was spread in the Bronx? It was the New York Young Republican Club. And what I could tell you is we have people that look like the communities that they're door knocking in, and we're making huge gains. And if you look at the Bronx, it had one of the largest swings to the right out of any of the 5 boroughs. So since we've been involved in campaign activities, the city has swung just tremendously to the right. So we think we're going to keep gaining, too. I don't think this is over.
Well, I mean, how can you not keep gaining when you look at the policies that the Democrats are putting out there? I mean, when you have Democrats that are essentially celebrating Hamas, a terrorist organization, when they're promoting sanctuary cities and saying, I mean, the NYPD, and I do have to state this, a couple of weeks ago, a video was released about teen migrants, right? Venezuelan illegal immigrants, part of TDA members, I believe, and they're 12, 13, 14 years old, were attacking police officers. And what happened is the police officers arrest them, they bring them down to the precinct, and ICE agents show up at the precinct. The NYPD commissioner, and everyone needs to know this, the NYPD commissioner was so outraged that the first thing she did was open an internal investigation as to who called ICE. She wasn't outraged that you have illegal immigrant kids that are attacking police officers. She was more outraged that someone leaked to ICE that these kids were arrested. How can people... I don't think there's a normal human being out there that would actually support something like that.
No, nobody supports this. This is all... When we have a police commissioner that's willing to open an internal investigation in order to protect criminal migrants, you could see how far the Democratic Party has gone here in New York. And on top of that, just to talk about this issue more in depth, because I think that as Republicans, we really need to state this. Criminal migrants are going to be deported, and they need to be deported first. But if you are in the country illegally, there is no sanctuary. You need to go home. You cannot stay in the country illegally. We need to make that a just baseline of things we believe, or else citizenship has no meaning. It does not mean anything. If you have an entire nation of and I'm gonna quote I never thought I would, but I'm gonna quote the British Prime Minister. If we have a country of strangers that are coming here because they think the United States is an economic zone, that is not feasible for a country. We have a language, we have a border, we have a culture, we are an American people. This is not somewhere where you can just come for work and then you go back home. No, that's not the way that this works. America is for Americans first. That's the way that we need to view this. So when you have criminal migrants being protected by the top brass of the police department, you could see how far the Democrats have gone. This is not the JFK Democrats. These are not the moderate Democrats. There are no such thing as moderate Democrats. If you're a moderate Democrat, you've been co-opted by the left, and the tail is wagging the dog at this point.
Yeah, I mean, listen, let's face it. The days of the Clinton Democrat, they would be considered hardcore conservatives today. And
Yeah.
that is an amazing thing, because the debate has moved so far to the left that even if you promote things like, freedom of speech and the United States Constitution, the right to privacy, speak out against government censorship and all these other things, well, they're like, oh, he's right wing. It's like, no, these were like seemingly normal positions just 20, 30 years ago. And so you have seen the fall off. What do you think? How can Republicans expand in the face of some Republicans being very weak-kneed? Some Republicans still believe that they're dealing with the 1990s Democrats, the 1980s Democrats. They don't realize how the Democrat Party has shifted dramatically. And again, I'm someone that believes in two vibrant political parties. I want to see a normal Democrat rise up, that speaks with normal policies where I may disagree with them, but at least we actually agree that America is a great country, that America was founded on ideals like liberty and freedom, and that we don't have to be ashamed of ourselves as being American, and that we're going to, like you said, take care of Americans first as opposed to everyone else around the world.
I think that Republicans, and you call it weak need, I call it being a rhino. When you run as a Republican, people expect you to legislate as a Republican. You are not there to go to the cocktail parties. You are not there to get pats on the back from your liberal colleagues.
And I just have to interrupt you.
Yes.
Because I can't imagine that their cocktail parties are all that fun. Like, I'd much rather go to a New York Young Republican event than a cocktail party of insiders. I just wanted to say that.
Well, listen, they don't have much fun, so when they're attempting to, they definitely don't want to be excluded, And look, for the real Republicans, they come to the New York Young Republican Club cocktail parties, Wine Wednesdays, Margarita Mondays. That's where they go to have fun, and they're heralded as heroes. But for some of the weak rhinos, yeah, they don't want to be excluded. They want the pats on the back. They want their liberal colleagues to be like, great job, you're doing a great job. Republicans, and I say this with all due respect and love, Republicans need to buck up and get to legislating. President Trump has a legislative agenda, and there's a lot of people in the House that are, I don't know if we could do that right now. President Trump got elected on a mandate victory. A mandate victory. It was a landslide for him. Let's not make pretend like the American people don't want to see what he has to offer. So for a lot of these, Republicans who are weak at the knee, right? Maybe you should give up your seat and give it to somebody who's going to actually legislate and who's going to actually stand for Americans first. And when it comes to the Democratic Party, I don't see where they go from here. I'm being completely honest. Unless they have a real vibrant figure that can come up and lead a moderate revolution within the party, I don't see how that person wins. You have the crazy leftists, and they can't win without winning over those crazy leftists. They need their turnout operation. They need their small dollar money operation. The Working Families Party is a huge small dollar program. So I don't see how a moderate can pop up and win a Democratic primary.
Well, look at what they're doing to Senator Fetterman, right? Yeah. I mean, this is a guy who had a severe stroke in 2022. I'm like, he should not be able to go into the Senate. Could hardly speak, couldn't read. Now, in that 3-year period, he obviously has improved dramatically health-wise. But now I'm seeing article after article about how Fetterman is so unhealthy that he's not fit for office. It's all coming from Democrats. The knives are out because he dared speak against their narrative. And you're right. Like, when you look at it, AOC is now the leader of their party for right now. I look at it, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Jasmine Crockett, they're the ones driving the Democrat Party. And I don't see how they could be successful in that.
Yeah, the fact that Jasmine Crockett is a congresswoman just blows my mind. But the fact that AOC is a congresswoman blows my mind. you look at somebody like Fetterman, who, you're right, has dramatically improved in terms of his cognitive skills. When we were the ones, when he was at his worst, saying this guy cannot be a senator, this man needs to heal and needs to relax his brain for a little bit. The Democrats, they called us ableist, they called us this, they called us everything under the sun. But now that he's a Republican, they think he just had the stroke. It's incredible. So they're turning on him and they're pulling the knives on him because he's not towing the party line. And Hakeem Jeffries has lost control of his conference. He cannot control his Congress people. And they're mutinying on him. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a real mutiny against him if they do take the House, which I'm not certain they will next cycle.
Well, Republicans better get their asses in gear and start pushing through legislation and codifying some of the executive orders.
I'll tell you something. We're going, the New York Republican Club, we're going to be working to make sure that we've got seats that we're looking at that we want to pick up and we want to hold. But no, AOC and Jasmine Crockett really are the heads of the Democratic Party right now, and AOC is the only one that can kind of bring the energy. She's the only one that younger voters are looking towards, and she's doing her, AOC world tour, fight the oligarchy while I'm on my private jet. She's probably the leader of the party right now, and that bodes well for us considering she's not very popular in her district, and she's not very popular anywhere in the country.
Well, exactly. People are like, oh, well, look at the crowds Bernie Sanders and AOC are getting. And I'm like, yeah, but those are people that would never, ever, ever vote for a Republican, period. I mean, it's not like those are people you can't even really have a conversation with because you're not going to change their mind. You can't persuade them. And it's if you had a bunch of Trump supporters there saying, hey, I'm giving her, then I would pay attention. But I don't. But I have one final question. What do you think happens with Chuck Schumer? I mean, this has been a guy that's been in the Democrat Party his whole life. He's been in a position of power for, 30, 40 years? And what do you think is going to happen with him? Because there is a real challenge to Chuck Schumer as the Senate minority leader, but as the leader of the Democrats.
What do I think is going to happen? I mean, it's very tough to say. The Democrats do... not of recently, but they have done a great job at keeping a lot of the intra-party fights internal. This spilled out into the press, obviously, and with Hakeem Jeffries giving the non-answer on whether or not he thought Chuck Schumer should remain as minority leader. Look, I think we could see a mutiny against Chuck Schumer.
Well, I'm not going to shed any tears if he goes.
No, I won't shed any tears either, but I'm afraid to see who comes after him. I'm afraid to see who the Senate Democrats will put up, because it's definitely not going to be somebody who is, kind of willing and able to make a deal. And what will happen is the Democrats will just go farther to the left if this happens, because he made the deal, right? Obviously, Trump, it's obvious Trump got the better end of the deal, of course, because he wrote the book, Art of the Deal. They're not going to be able to make a deal after that. Whoever is the next minority leader is going to be running scared, so I don't see how he remains. He's definitely not going to run for re-election, but I don't see how he remains the remainder of his term as minority leader. I think there will be some sort of upheaval.
Well, it's certainly going to be interesting to watch, and I'd love to have you back on, keep discussing
Absolutely.
What's going on in New York, what's going on throughout the country, and what's going on within the New York Young Republican Club. Everyone, you go to the PAS Report website, pasreport.com. I'll have links up so you can follow Stefano and the New York Republican Club. Stefano, thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much, Nick. I appreciate you.
Thank you for listening to the P.A.S. Report. Don't forget to rate, share, and hit that subscribe button. That way you'll never miss an episode. For more exclusive content and updates, visit us at pasreport.com and follow Professor Giordano on all social media platforms at P.A.S. Report.